I'm the CEO of Stop the Traffic. I've been doing this since 2005, and I'm thrilled to be able to join with you and share with you the work that we've actually done in the wonderful area of Wisbech and across the east of England. So Stop the Traffic, a little bit about us and who we are. Now this is where it's going to, let's hope that it plays. Is it playing? Yes. This is who we are, a little bit, 15 years of my life. We started in 2005, and I just want to bring in immediately our use of technology. This is how we ran as we were doing this marathon, realizing that technology had a role to play. And you'll see on the time frame the number of initiatives that we started to build in, and they'll come to the fore as we talk. How do we see trafficking? You've heard so many great speakers talk about this issue. We work globally and we see trafficking under the eyes of it's an errant economy. It's about money. It's really important today that we hear, as Ella articulated, aspects of it, young people, particular ways where this money's being earned and where vulnerable people are being exploited. Because people need to recruit, but this is a global errant economy that is thriving. And in order to thrive, it needs to recruit. It needs to move its money through the global systems. It needs to create a high demand, and it needs to ensure that the risk maintained is low. And at the moment, this criminal organization, highly organized from global, regional, national and local, as we are talking today, is really well managed and it's connected. In order, therefore, using technology, one of the things we could see is we needed to do two things. You needed a tool that could sit in anyone's hand, because anywhere in the world, particularly those people, interestingly, in areas of the world that we know are most vulnerable, they have mobiles or they're given mobiles. It's a means by which this trafficking Inc. criminal business communicates, grooms, ensnares, traps, exploits. And so the Stop app was created a number of years ago. It's now just done this past year an upgrade, and it's an anonymous reporting tool. And then also the need from individual stories to move to the ability to network and collect data at scale. So you're going to hear me talk about stories. And my journey, I think, in the first years was moving around amazing people locally on the ground, rescuing, building real committed sacrifice lives around those in most need who were trapped and trafficked. But I also realized nobody really knew what was going on. And you can't stop what you can't see. And we initiated Traffic Analysis Hub in 2017 to build off the footprint of Stop the Traffic's Centre for Intelligence-Led Prevention. The Traffic Analysis Hub is a scaled data sharing initiative that we've done with IBM, who have been our partners for 8 years. But it is to be a non-competitive sharing space across banks, businesses, civil society, NGOs, enforcement, academia, government. Because if we can't share the bits in our pockets and put them in a place and be able to get clever and use the technology that is all out there, then we're never going to be able to work locally and effectively to stop it. Because every story is the power for a survivor to make the change. That story doesn't belong to anyone apart from that person. But if we take those stories and share them and begin to identify how those stories identify non-sensitive information, but start to map into a data picture. And when you then map 100 stories, you could get 1 million data points. And when you put those data points with movement and migration and climate and all the other aspects that drive vulnerability and generate the ability for exploitation, you begin to pick up patterns and hotspots. And then all of us can begin to see more than we can see now. So on a global nature, that's Stop the Traffik's work that we've been building and doing for the last 15 years. If I could see you, I need to tell you and show you that's how old I look. That's why it's many mountains, not lots of summits. So forgive me, in a few minutes, I'm giving you the headlines, but I am truly excited about the level that we have built so that we can serve others. Because that's also what brings us to the local work we have been doing in the Fenlands. I'm bringing you images of a report that you can find and the link that will be shared that we did over a couple of years of work, because we actually brought this in to be independently evaluated by a grant that we gained for 2 years to put in a whole MEL framework, monitoring, evaluation and learning across our prevention work. Why? Because we needed to be Ofsteded. I don't think often we're in the not-for-profit very good sometimes at opening ourselves up and let's be evaluated, especially as I felt there was no, we could share what we knew, but was it useful to anyone? Thankfully, it is. But this project became central both to our thinking and I hope to some pivotal change making and thinking and sharing in prevention globally. That's why local matters. That's why what is happening in Wisbech matters. You can network globally, but you have to lead locally in the change. So what did we do in the Fenlands? Well, we ran a series of campaigns and we were actually reached out to by the Lithuanian embassy originally because of stories on the ground. And we use our change model, which is all around gathering partners, collecting stories and analysing them with our intelligence-led capabilities. Stories from all sectors, open source, anything that we already can see, anything out there. There is a huge amount of data in pockets out there, journalists, press, and then organisations and partners. What do they know? Just listening to Ella, they know a lot. In fact, I always believe you know more the closer the ground that you get to. And then identifying in that, what is the key lever that we want to be able to directly target into a community that we think is going to make the change. So we then create communication and a video that then is directly targeted into that community using the tools available to us. So we work a very strong partnership with Facebook and Instagram, using social media and digital platforms. We are also in conversations with others globally, which is very exciting. And why is that so exciting? Because you can target, you can geolocate, and you can reach at scale. And the message is all about being able to inform people, not scare, not shame, guilt. Those things never change behaviour, but empower, inform, and mobilise. So here were the project objectives. We wanted to build relevance of the issue. We wanted to equip with knowledge. We wanted to drive the changes in behaviour. And this report was done purposely and shared with our friends in Lithuania because, as you'll see, the campaigns as they ran started to teach us a huge amount about the power of where these messages were going. We wanted to increase local engagement and we wanted to support systemic identification and reporting in the financial sector because it's about money. So where is the money going? And the people who most know that are the people who are holding the phones, who are having the engagement. So our project outcomes, and as I shared there was a surge in calls. You can see some images that we've just given you a glimpse of some of those videos that we did in different languages. And the partners with, you can see that, Santander Bank and the UK Embassy, and the reach in the top. What fascinated us the first time we did this was the direction of sharing upstream into Lithuania. And interestingly, we began to see that spreading as well across Europe, because that's the power of what social and digital platforms do. You can reach and share this message to family members who are in other countries about what's happening to you. And there were 3 videos. We ran these through 9 ads on Facebook and Instagram. And we have a landing page, and we share and signpost with all our partners who were working. And there's the partners, lots of them over the years, which is critical to progress. You see, if we can't stop what we can see, if we get to know something, if we keep it to ourselves, no one else benefits. A sharing revolution is needed. That is how we will become a force to be reckoned with against the organisation that shares information in order to exploit and to traffic and to hold people. And I'm always moved at the top by that quote by Christina, one of the partners in a Lithuanian charity who we work very closely with, that not even in our sweetest dreams could we imagine such big numbers to be reached. We've never succeeded to have such a big audience. And it's not just that size matters, it's that she reached people and conveyed what their service was. And what's also interesting for Christina is, and you'll read it if you go and see, is that one of the greatest challenges she had was people being honest about what was happening to them, finding the language, understanding that what was happening to them was wrong. And yet now, instead of people ringing up and going, something's happening to my friend, it was something's happening to me. Something is happening to me and my family and in our community. And the amount of information that started flowing skyrocketed. And that becomes the change. So there were recommendations after to this, and forgive me, some of that in the wonderful atmosphere of technology changes the size of things. But let me tell you them, and these are things I share with you because we're always learning. We have to learn. And this was about raising the profile of even more subtle forms of exploitation, people understanding and being told in language that means something to them, that something that was being done was wrong. It wasn't normal. You see, just putting up a poster, as I'm sure you've heard, and saying modern slavery is happening here, it's wrong if it's happening to you, or don't be trafficked, is actually pretty useless. Because to those for whom those things are happening, they wouldn't define themselves as that at all. So how we use communication, how we shape stories, how we tell something so people can identify, be empowered, and be able to make a choice and make a change. Be more explicit in campaigns around situations like zero-hour contracts to help educate the reality and equip people with knowledge to make informed decisions. Consider how to hear the voices of those the campaign seeks to support. We had a whole series of focus groups where people went on the ground as well as talking to organisations. And we learnt a lot. We learnt a lot about how people perceive themselves and messages and what messages really worked. Consider the role of campaigns at the beginning of a longer term work stream. And we've been doing this now for multiple times in one area so that we could really focus and learn. And campaign explicitly around sharing experiences and speaking out to keep encouraging conversation and reduce stigma. So what about me and Stop the Traffic going forward? I thought I'd give you a bit of my passion for the next 10 years. We're looking at a decade of intent, come out. What does it mean for Wisbech? Stories matter. We've heard powerfully about how a museum matters. Local stories, history, present, but what about the future? Where are we going? Because if by 2030 we have not disrupted trafficking, then I think we'll all have to look that we have failed. We cannot just continue to build a bigger network if we're not working together in order to bring disruption and measure that prevention. One of my heroes, Desmond Tutu, which inspired me 15 years ago and still does. We have to stop pulling people out of the river and go upstream and stop people jumping in. And there's not one way of doing that, but it's going to need all of us to convene, to converge our resources, not to fragment the picture, fragment the data, fragment and replicate what we're doing, but to find local, regional, national and global ways of convening, which is what I believe Stop the Traffic is and has done. And then we need to scale in a targeted way. We need to understand and predict, because we can't stop what we can see, but if we can start to see it, then we can begin to identify in roots and patterns the triggers that cause the exploitation and the movement of people where they can be exploited. We need vulnerable people not to be exploited. We need to get actually maybe a bit more agitated about it. We need to be urgent about it. We need to be at the point where we refuse to allow this to happen. I think there is so much amazing work going on. I commend the work in Wish Beach and the museum and the amazing partners that we have met and worked with, both locally and around the world. But importantly, we're not winning. And yet, I believe with technology, with the experience, with the pockets of information that we have across all of us, we're on the brink of the next 10 years being that revolution of sharing. Trafficking is a global economic organization driving profit because it can, because it's quite low risk. And we, which feeds on greed, if we can build the equivalent movement that feeds and pumps with the heart of generosity, I think we have the ability to share what we know. And that is what Traffic Analysis Hub now built, now functioning. It's got many financial organizations as members and participants, NGOs, businesses, universities, and it's growing in interest. It's a safe, secure place. For NGOs, it's free. For enforcement, it's free. For academia, it's free. And for businesses and for the financial sector, they help pay what is relatively a small fee in order to sustain it. This is not about us building a profiting organization. This is about us sharing our resources to build the capability for us all to come to what I call is the well of data. The wells, so that we can look at it. Data's no good on its own. We need to analyze it. We need to understand the insight and take from that well, drink from that well, what will make us better at what we do. And then we can focus. We can be able to use the skills that we have in our hand and become truly coordinated and also very good in our own individual spaces. I always say, for me, the data place is about data and about dating. It's also about finding those people locally, nationally, and globally where we can work together. So thank you again for having me. Thank you for the immense amount of learning I'm doing today. Thank you for everyone who works in this wonderful area of the world. But we have challenges ahead, and those challenges I believe we can meet with people and technology, with the tools that we're all bringing that we've built. And I hope Stop the Traffic will serve and lead in any way we can in order that we can turn the tide and stop the traffic. Thank you.